Yo, what's going on? In this final interview from Houston, I'm talking with Victoria Sekely, TrainSmartRunStrong on Instagram. I had a chance to meet her in person in Houston, and we're following up on that with this conversation here. She came away with a shiny new PB in the half marathon, and so we'll talk about her race, some of the mental struggles she had to fight through to get to this point, the mantras that helped her get through some of the toughest parts of the race, and of course, we'll also talk about some of the techniques that she uses to help even the most reluctant marathoners incorporate strength training into their training plans. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Victoria, good morning. So great to see you. How are you feeling now today, a few days out from the race in Houston?
Good to see you too. I am feeling pretty great. The soreness is getting a little better day by day. I'm refueling, I'm resting, I'm sleeping well. I'm feeling very happy. I had such a great experience this past weekend, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Great. I was really excited to bump into you, literally bump into you at the coffee shop. Was that the morning before the race?
Yeah. I was very happy to bump into you. I think the first thing I said was, I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following you on Instagram for a long time too, and so I felt like it was perfect. And then you were there with Nick, who I met somewhat recently, and he's been a good friend to have in the running space as well. And so it was like, oh, this is perfect. Now I'm not just some weirdo that's like, hey, I've been following you. You know, there's a connection there.
I know, that's what I love about going to races like this, is I actually get to meet people in real life that I see on social media. And honestly, it has been nothing but good vibes every time I meet people in real life. So I feel like social media kind of sometimes can paint a different picture, but in real life is always much better.
I agree. I think the internet and social media specifically is at its best when it can kind of help relationships start, but then ultimately leads to in-person connections.
100%.
I think that's the peak.
I completely agree.
Let's start talking about the race. You came home with a shiny new PB.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
And I saw the caption of the post that you put out, and I really wanted to ask you about cucumber. You mentioned that was like a mantra. Mm-hmm. Like, tell me more about that. How did you use it?
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, so it was actually something that I didn't think of beforehand, but just kind of came to me during the race. Not to say that I haven't been kind of considering that idea of just being a little bit more calm in my races. To give you a little bit of a background story, I started official therapy in April after I had a panic attack during a half marathon. So I've had to do a lot of work behind the scenes to just kind of keep my mind calm. And obviously there's a lot of, background to that. And, there's still a lot of work to do for sure. But the reason that I raced last weekend, the reason I did the last two halves before that as well, is basically to not only train my legs, but to train my mind. And in terms of my mind, I work best when I'm feeling most calm. I know some people maybe work better when they're more excited and things like that, and I totally understand that as well. But specifically when I'm in a race, my mentality has to be just kind of calm, having fun, smile on my face. Another big word for me is feeling smooth. And going into this race, I told my coach Nick, as you mentioned, he's my actual coach too, so we've had these conversations a lot, is I just want to feel smooth. I want my legs to feel smooth with every step. And that was the first thing that I thought of a couple weeks before. Then as I was lining up at the start line, it was really cold. As you recall, it was also pitch black. I've never started a race and have the first few miles be in darkness, which I thought was pretty wild. But so that kind of, got me a little bit more nervous and more tense. And I just kept reminding myself, stay calm, stay calm. And then I just went to stay calm like a cucumber, stay calm like a cucumber. And that, progressed to cucumber. Okay. And that's kind of there really is no, greater meaning to that, except for the fact that that's something my mom used to tell me all of the time when I was much younger. I come from a background in competitive sports as well. So I think maybe that's something that popped up in my mind last second from a deeply traumatized place, I guess. But it was extremely helpful. And I just, repeating the word cucumber almost took a bigger role than I expected it to in the moment. And I think I'm honestly going to take it with me for probably the next few races that I have, at least.
All right. I have kind of two follow-ups on
Yeah.
that. The first one is cucumber is kind of an awkward word to say over and over. So can you tell me, like, in your mind, is it like left foot, right foot, cucumber? Or is it cucumber? Like, how do you hear?
Cucumber. That's how I hear it.
Okay.
Good question.
Because my other point is, like, my mantra for this whole build has been relish. And, like, one, because I like pickle relish, and that's kind of related
Wow,
to
they
cucumbers.
go well together. Yeah.
But I thought relish, because, like, during the workouts, mentally for me, I tend to be kind of like a shrinking flower. So, like, once it gets hard, my brain wants to shut down.
Totally
Everything
get
wants to
that.
shut down. And so I've been using the word relish as a way of being like, no, this feeling is the right feeling. This is where the work happens. This is where the other 6 reps before this were building you up so you could feel this moment, and this is the strain that you need.
Yes.
And so relish it. And so I've been trying to, like, enjoy, not pain, because I'm not hurt, but like those, sirens that seem to be going off that really aren't sirens, but my brain's just like, we're working really hard, just relish it. And so for me, it was relish. So like, every like left foot was relish.
Yep.
Relish.
That's how it was for me. That's exactly how it was for me. Like every left foot, cucumber. And I oddly feel like we have the exact same experience, and we kind of came to the same outcome, which is really cool to hear, to be honest, because that's how it feels for me. It's like something feels hard, and my brain almost is like, nope, I don't want to be doing this. It should be fun. And like, managing those expectations of like, it's okay if it's hard. It's actually okay for it to be hard. Just keep going.
Yeah.
And that has been really, really huge for me. And I feel like cucumber and relish definitely encompass that.
Can you imagine if we were like running next to each other, someone else in the pack would have been like, what is happening?
I think we
cucumber relish?
We
Like,
might
this is
one
wild.
day have to like get a cucumber and a relish outfit and just like run a race like that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I'm up for it anytime.
I'm up for it too.
Oh, that's so funny. Let's get to some brass tacks about the race, though. I'd love to talk about shoes that you picked for the race, because I love talking about shoes. What was your choice?
The Saucony on Endorphin Speeds. It's the shoe that I've been racing the last few halves in. And honestly, I just really like them. I'm not too much a carbon plated girly. These are the nylon plates. So it's kind of like a fun in between for me. And I do a lot of my speed workouts in them as well.
Yeah, really fun shoe to run in. I did a lot of my workouts for this build in that shoe as well.
Love it.
And then as far as your workouts go, like what does your mileage look like for you to hit a PB? Like in this last training block?
Good question. So it's kind of, I'll tell you a little bit more about what the training block looked like. And I think that we have to kind of go into my backstory. So the last marathon I raced was Chicago of 2023. And after that, I was completely burnt out from marathons. I had run New York City the year before, so New York City 2022. So I've only run 2 marathons, and I was already burnt out after the second one. I think mainly because I had a really tough experience at New York City, and I was disappointed in myself, which again, a lot of that trauma stems from that moment as well. And that night of the New York City Marathon, after the race, I signed up for the Chicago lottery and just ended up getting it. I probably shouldn't have, but I was like, I can't let this opportunity go. I have to do it. But I don't think mentally I was completely prepared to basically take a couple weeks off, start a half marathon training program, then start another full marathon training program. So once I raced Chicago, even though it did go well, better than New York at least, I was mentally burnt out from that type of training, and I knew I wanted to take at least a full year off of racing marathons. So that was my 2024. And then I had the panic attack during the half marathon in April. So all of that leading into it, I knew I was going to race a marathon in 2025, and something in my mindset changed after this summer. I think, again, going to actual therapy and working through a lot of those demons has been probably the most helpful thing. But I just suddenly started to get excited about training again. And I told my coach, I was like, I'm ready. Like, I'm mentally, physically ready. I want to push my mileage. I want to do things that I haven't done. My mileage leading up to Chicago and New York City was probably around like the highest peak weeks were like maybe around 40, 45. So not too crazy, pretty standard, I would say, like average, definitely not on the high end. But I said to him leading up to this marathon, like, I want to do more. I'm ready to do more. I'm willing to do more, and I think that'll be exciting for me. And I also figured out a lot of different nutrition tactics as well. So I was ready for that next step. So I raced the Toronto half back in October. That was my goal half marathon for the fall. And I would say my mileage was probably around like 30, 35. And since then, I took a little bit of time off. And since then, I've kind of been more looking towards my spring marathon. And I kind of said to my coach, like, we can start to push that mileage. Like, I know I have the Houston half on the calendar, but I wasn't necessarily going for a PB this weekend. I was just kind of like, it's a fun race. My mileage is high. I'm doing fun workouts. Like, I'm kind of building off of my fitness even in the fall. So let's see what happens. So now my mileage is pushing 50 and it will keep going from there. And I think that was a huge reason that I felt so smooth this past weekend, because I've been building and feeling really, really solid with that. So
that's quite a big jump.
Yeah.
And because you're on your way to a full marathon later this year
in May.
For that big jump, like I've been following a little bit of your training, and I've seen that you've been doing a lot of mileage, but I also note that like you don't really talk about like your splits or your times. You explain things in terms of hard, easy, and even on your PB and your race caption, like the time isn't listed there.
No.
Can you explain a little bit? I'm not asking you to divulge. I'm totally cool. I find that fascinating, and I think I know why, but I'd love to get your take on it and put it in your words why you don't do that for your audience.
So one of the biggest reasons is I don't think that pace is important, right? Obviously, I have specific goals that I want to hit, and that does have to do with pace, but just again, kind of going back to the mental struggles that I have dealt with, I'm very hard on myself. I compare myself very often on social media, and because I've been on social media for a while, I think there's a huge problem on social media when it comes to comparisons with other athletes. And I want to purposefully take a stand and say, it does not matter what my pace is compared to your pace, compared to someone else's pace, compared to, the last person that you've checked on's pace. It doesn't matter at all what my pace in a certain workout is, because first of all, I could go out on Wednesday morning and run an easy effort run, and it could be at, a 13-minute pace. If my legs are sore, if I got really crappy sleep, if I didn't feel good, if, and again, it's all relative because 13 minutes is also a really good pace. I don't want anyone listening to this thinking that I mean that's slow, but that's exactly what it is. It doesn't matter because slow is relative to you and to nobody else, right? And it depends on the day that you're having as well. So I could go out and I slept really well and I'm feeling really good, and maybe I've taken a couple days off and my legs are feeling great, and that easy pace is a little bit faster. And that's okay too. But it's most important to be able to tap into that and listen to your body and have that understanding that, okay, just because it says this number on my watch, my legs are actually kind of sore today and they're not feeling great. So I'm going to slow it down because I want to keep my effort easy. Your body knows effort. Your body doesn't know pace, right? So I think my purpose of not sharing my pace on social media, number one, is if you really care enough, go look it up. Like, you know what I mean? And if you care enough to look it up, I think that's great. But if you're also judging me from it, then you should maybe look inwards about that. That's not my problem because I know my goals.
You need to do a different kind of search.
Yeah, you need to do a different kind of search. Exactly. Like Google search is like therapists near me. But, yeah, so that's really what it's about. That's what it's rooted in.
As you're increasing your mileage, though, I mean, you spend basically your entire Instagram career talking about strength training and incorporating strength with running. How are you incorporating it into your routine as someone who has basically had a New Year's resolution every year to start including strength and conditioning, and always fails at it. I always feel like once the training gets hard, I don't want to do it anymore. Like, how are you running higher mileage, basically training through a half marathon PB on your way to a marathon? What's the formula there?
Yeah. So a lot of that, I typically find that I work with a lot of athletes who feel the same way, and I have felt the same way. Like, going into both of my marathons, I really struggled to keep up with strength training. Probably the only reason I did strength training is because I have a strength app that I just like had to keep making videos for, and that's what kept me going. Outside of that, like, my motivation was zero to actually do that, right? So I understand, because running really takes over your life, and I have felt that switch very recently. I think a lot of it is because I spent a lot of time, I spent time and distance away from the full marathon to begin with, right? Which again kind of rejuvenates you and gets you motivated again. And in its place, I spent a lot of time building my strength up, to the point where a lot of the exercises that were really challenging, that made my legs sore, that made me feel like the next day my runs are really sluggish, and that's never a good feeling if you're training for a marathon. Like, you want to make sure that your runs are feeling good, things like that. But if you don't spend the time beforehand on strength training, it can feel a lot harder. So I think it's important to recognize that timing is important. And if you overload yourself from the start, and you basically start a strength training program the day you start marathon training, it's going to feel like a lot. But if strength training has kind of become a part of your routine already, now I'm looking at it as I'm, continuing in this marathon training program, where I have really simplified my strength routine. I know the exercises I'm doing. I've built the weight to like a pretty solid amount. I just kind of get through the exercises and then go on with my day. It takes me no longer than 20-25 minutes max twice a week. And it's kind of become a habit that I have really started to enjoy as well. But I couldn't have done that while marathon training. Like, that's It's really hard to do because you're spending so much time doing something else.
Well, that makes me feel a little bit less bad.
You shouldn't feel bad. You shouldn't feel bad. You're not alone.
I'm kind of almost always in a marathon training block, so that makes it hard when you're a perpetual, a chronic abuser of the marathon.
So my recommendation for you would then be literally like, make it as little time and as easy as possible. Like, you don't have to start with weights. You don't have to start longer than 15 minutes. You can do it right after your runs. I know we go on social media and there's all these like seemingly like really intense rules around strength training. Like, you should keep your hard days hard and you should only strength train 3 hours after your run. That's not feasible for a lot of people. And I think that creates an unnecessary boundary where you would actually probably benefit from just spending like 20 minutes after your run and doing a couple exercises and then going on with your day.
But I could run more miles in 20 minutes. If I had 20 more minutes. Is that going to be
beneficial for you? Because the strength training should be, and then I think this is where it's important for people to recognize that is the strength training shouldn't feel like your runs. Like, you shouldn't be ending them being like, I'm sweaty and I'm like, like I did 100 jumps in one thing. It's like, if you're going to do that, you might as well just keep running, right? If that's the purpose. But strength training has a completely different purpose, right? It's for bone health. It's for muscular tendinous health. It's to be able to tolerate more mileage. So once you start to see it differently, I think it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I had a pretty good streak, I would say, for me. Over like the summer, I was doing pretty good, and then the summer got away from me with travel and work, I was like, oh, and then it's hard to get back on the wagon. It's just like, so I got it. I'm ready. If
there's one more recommendation that I can give you, which I think has been really helpful, that not a lot of people talk about, is if you can create like a positive association around it. So like for me, like obviously there's one day a week that I record for my app, and that is what it is. But the second strength day that I do by myself, I look forward to, because I listen to my podcast. I watch my favorite show. I listen to good music. Like, it's something that I really started to enjoy and value that time. So again, like if you're struggling to get started because it's just not something you're looking forward to, save the time to play your favorite podcast or play your favorite music for that 15, 20-minute block. And I think you'll start to look forward to it. Or like watch your favorite show, put on a TV, bring your iPad to the gym, something like that. And it'll make it go by easier.
Yeah, but then I also have to not watch that thing if I skipped that week. And I don't want to do that.
Maybe you can just add to it then, right? So
Okay,
if you're
okay.
watching a show, maybe start another show for when you're strength training. You know, there's so many ways to get around it. But like
I hear what
the
you're saying.
idea
It's good
is like
advice.
make it something that you look forward to. And it's probably not going to be just strength training in silence, you know, by yourself, or at like the most crowded time in the gym, right? Like make it realistic.
Well, I mean, we did just buy a squat rack for the house.
Oh
so
my
I'm
God.
like, now I have like no excuses anymore. But I was like, well, I'm currently in like halfway through a half marathon training block, so let's chill.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like, it was like Black Friday around that time. So I was like, all right, because my wife was like, hey, we got all this space in the basement. Maybe we should. I'm like, got it. I'm on it. I'm great at buying stuff. So
Wait, squat rack in the basement is a game changer. That's what my husband and I
think
did,
so.
and it's literally
Yeah.
like it's great. It's fun. I recommend
Yeah, I'm looking
it.
forward to it because like I've been putting it off. I'm like, now's not a great time to start or restart something up. And then I was also like by the fall and the winter, I got like super fatigued and I didn't really know what was happening. And so I was like, I just need to not overload.
Totally.
And so like, I'm just going to do some running for this training block and then we'll see. And so, but now I'm feeling great.
Good.
And so I'm like, all right, we got the squat. It's been sitting in there.
It's waiting for you.
So now I have no more excuses. I bought the things, so now I got to try it. And so I think that'll help too, because like, you know, my approach has been, all right, I'm going to be in the gym for 20 minutes. Whatever I get done is fine, but at least I can go in and sit there on the bench and stare at my phone if I want, but I at least have to be there. And like, that's the time I have to spend.
Yeah.
But then it's like, well, it takes like 15 minutes, 10 minutes to get there, 10 minutes back. And then I'm like, it's like an hour commitment.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
And if I had another hour, I would have rather run another hour.
Yep.
You know, and so,
Yep.
because that's more fun.
Yep.
But now it's like, all right, 20 minutes is 20 minutes now. So I'm out of excuses.
Yeah, I think we got to the bottom of it, but I honestly think that like once you get going, it might surprise you. You might start to like it. And then you'll find yourself like me one day. One day I chose to strength train instead of run when I only had time for one, which I never thought I would say. I never.
Yeah, I don't see that happening for me.
No, never say never. Never say never.
All right. All right. If it happens, you'll be the first
Yes,
person I call.
please.
Let's end up with the one other section. And I love talking with people who are in the running space and especially who are doing well in social media, because I love to kind of pick their brains on how they're approaching things. You're over 100,000 followers on Instagram. Congratulations. That's a gigantic number. We've already talked about it a little bit in terms of like how sometimes the motivation to continue like kind of producing content helps motivate you in a positive way to keep doing what you need to be doing. But can you tell me like how does the social media fit in with not only your business, you're a run coach, USATF and RCA certified coach, and also you're a doctor of physical therapy. So like how does all this kind of fit within all the pieces of your daily life?
Yeah. I'm going to be completely honest. I've struggled with social media, just the, mental toll it has taken me, receiving negative comments, things like that. It hasn't been easy. I'm not the type of person to just kind of like brush something off. And I genuinely feel like the connections I've made with people are real, which makes it harder when you then receive negative comments and things like that. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, it's been great. It's been the best thing ever. And obviously it's a part of my business, which I think is very cool. And I'm very grateful to have it. But yeah, it's not all, sunshine and rainbows 24/7. But one thing I will say about it is, so I graduated PT school back in 2016. And before I started on social media, I was, working in outpatient orthopedics, just like every, PT that graduates the first couple of years, and, seeing quite a few people per day. I want to say like 15 or 16 people per day. Like it was very busy. It was a lot. And I am extremely grateful to have found social media, it was like the year, I think it was 2019 when I first started on Instagram. It just became a way that I could connect with the running community, because anytime a runner walked into the clinic, I was like ecstatic. Like I wanted to be like the running PT in my clinic. It was something that I wanted to pursue as a career, and I just didn't see how else it would be possible and until social media, until Instagram. So that's kind of what led me to where I am, is I just kept trying to reach that community in any way I possibly could. And Instagram really opened the door for me, and I just kind of continued from there. But posting in general, has not always been easy. Yes, it's fun to post, and yes, it kind of gets my creative side going. But in a weird way, the way that the Instagram algorithm works, almost like, I don't know if you feel the same way that I do, but you almost feel like, okay, if you post something, you got to keep posting for your momentum. And if you stop posting for a couple days, then you might lose a couple followers, and then you feel like you have to post again to stay relevant, and then you have to, post at a certain time for people to see your posts. And like this whole game, in a way, can kind of kill your creativity at the same time. So recently I've been trying to just kind of take a step back from all of that and say, I want to use this as a way to speak with my community, to use my knowledge and my education to talk to runners about what I believe in, but not get caught up in the games of Instagram, and kind of use it for what I feel is, spreading the good word.
Yeah, I would say that like Instagram specifically can be very exasperating at times.
So much so.
And so like, I find myself almost kind of like being anti-algorithm in a lot of ways, where I'm like, I don't know if I'm supposed to use hashtags. I'm not going to use any. No. I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing a schedule. I'm not going to post on a schedule. So like, I want to talk to runners, mainly shoe nerds.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm a shoe nerd. I run a lot, and I'm not trying to talk to like 18-year-olds and kids in high school.
Totally.
Other people do a great job of that. They're not resonant. I'm like twice their age. I'm not more than that. They're not, they're not always resonating with me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do people my age who are shoe nerds, when are they watching Instagram?
Yeah.
When I'm watching Instagram.
Right.
So like I post when I would want to see something new. And so I think of it like, I can't think of like the macro algorithm. I guess I have to think of the micro algorithm. And if like my mini universe is like runners who don't like, hashtag stuffing in the caption, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Also, it's super annoying.
It is.
To have to like write, or what do? Have like a note and you just copy paste all these like 17 hashtags?
For me, I just write 3 hashtags. I just go like runners, hashtag runners of Instagram, hashtag marathon training, and then like leave it at that. Like that.
Hashtag marathon training. You got to be the most stuffed
it's
hashtag.
Right. Nobody sees it because it's so stuffed. Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'm working against myself. I don't know. That's the thing. When I start to overthink it, I'm like, I can't even go there because it's too much.
Yeah, and so like I stopped posting on like a schedule and stopped trying to be like, once a day or 3 times a week. I'll just like, whenever I have something I want to say is when I'll do it, because I just mentally, I'm sure it's affecting my growth, but I'm like, you know what? I like the size of the community now. I'm very lucky to be able to say that.
Yes.
And I'm like, anytime I have something that really pops and all of a sudden new people come, it's usually a lot of grumpy people.
It is.
Like I feel like I've already weeded out the people that are going to be grumpy at me. And so when there's a lot of new people, I'm like, it's going to be, I'm going to have to do a lot of re-explaining myself, reintroducing myself. And I'm like, why does he run with his selfie stick? Oh God. Okay. Welcome to the channel. God. This is what I do here. So, I'm like, I don't need growth. I just want more connection with the people that are kind of like already, I'm not against new people, but I'm like, I love the people that are here. It's great. Let's focus on them.
Yeah.
Keep talking to them. And that has made it a little bit more bearable at the expense of maybe some size, but you're
so right. And I think that recently, I actually haven't grown my account in over a year now. Like I have not grown that number. And I remember very vividly when I grew to that number, because it was from one specific post that went viral. And it was right before my Chicago Marathon. It's when I got COVID like 2.5 weeks before, and I posted about it. And like, I was just flooded with new followers. And those next 2 months were some of the worst months on Instagram for me, because it was just negative comment after negative comment. And I swear to this day, I'm like still reading those people out. So you definitely have. And that's probably why I haven't grown. But I like to see it as like, okay, I'm replacing those people who just want to see me fall with like people who maybe actually like my content. So that's why at this point, 2 years ago, I would have been like, how have I not grown? Like, I've had so many posts go viral and all this stuff. But now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm pretty content with not going up from here.
Yeah, and I feel like your engagement's really strong too. So
Yeah,
you have
I have
a
a good
bunch of people that
community.
like the algorithm is showing you to them,
Yes.
and they're happy about
Yes.
it. And I feel like that's kind of what you want.
I
you know?
can't complain. I can't complain. And you know what? I have had some pretty awesome last couple months. I also have to say it's probably, again, because I've started therapy, and I now know if I see someone who maybe doesn't follow me and has a very negative comment towards me, I don't just immediately engage. I did have a post go viral last week that got it's at like 2 million views now. And I just received a flood of comments of people like picking apart these different things in the post. And I didn't respond to one of those comments. And I'm proud of myself. And I can't wait to talk to
That's
my therapist
amazing.
about that this week.
That is so impressive.
She's going to be so proud.
Half marathon PBs right there, and then right underneath that is like not responding to like 1,000 negative comments in a row.
I would switch those. Switch those, yeah.
It's a big week for Victoria.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me. It was great to talk to you finally in person like this. And I appreciate your time. If you guys are not following Victoria already, I'm sure you guys already are. I'll post links to everywhere that you can find her in the description below. Victoria, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was great.